Welcome to Outkick the Coverage. I'm Ryan Glasspiegel. Today, we're really lucky to be joined by Renee Young, who is the host of WWE Backstage, which airs Tuesday nights, 11 p.m. on FS1. Renee, I was really happy with the end of Money in the Bank on Sunday night. So obviously wrestling is a genre that the audience is a part of it, but I thought that within the confines of there being no crowd over the last couple months, that two people who have really been maximizing their output in terms of how entertaining they are in their performances are Asuka and Otis, and they came away as the winners of the Money in the Bank match. What was your reaction when you saw the finish?
I happier. I obviously don't think a lot of people would have assumed that Otis might have been in that position. I think a lot of people thought AJ Styles, we saw him resurrected from the dead. I think everyone assumed that maybe it was going to be him, maybe Baron Corbin, maybe a Daniel Bryan even. But for it to be Otis, I think the fans needed something like that. I think it gave people something to rally behind. And like you said, he's just been so entertaining, and you can just feel this really special momentum building up behind Otis right now. And as for Asuka, who is not a fan of Asuka right now? I mean, she has been so impressive. And like you said, again, just like her jumping on commentary and doing stuff, her dances to the ring, like every single aspect of Asuka, I find wholeheartedly entertaining. But beyond that, she is such a badass in the ring that I can't wait to see what's going to happen with her and Becky. And I guess we get to see some more of that tonight on Raw.
Yeah, the Money in the Bank, at least the last for a while, it's kind of a prop for heels, but especially with Otis, now all of a sudden that paradigm has shifted.
It's really funny because, yeah, I mean, a lot of times when you're thinking of somebody cashing in Money in the Bank, yeah, you do expect it to be a bit more of a heel situation. But now to have babyface in that spot, I think it just opens up the door. And I think that the dynamic of what we're working in right now as well, like you said, no crowd, who are people gravitating towards? I think it's kind of making everyone rethink everything about how professional wrestling works moving forward, because who knows when we're going to get back to normal, what the new normal is going to look like. So I think the way that WWE's been moving along and doing more of these cinematic style matches, thinking outside the box, I think it's really opening up some doors for a lot of other talent to capitalize on that.
I totally agree. And there's some storytelling elements that they've designed that I think are going to endure when they do have fans again. I mean, the Firefly Funhouse match and the Graveyard match at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And then the way that they shot Money in the Bank last night, where it was just nonstop action. There was no announcers. The camera angle was interesting. They used all of these different props in Titan Tower. Even when they do have an audience again, I think that they can revisit some of these elements for like an interesting change of pace.
For sure. I mean, you look at how long WWE has been up and running. It took this bizarre circumstance to really have to push the envelope and figure out how to keep the ball afloat during these times. And hats off to everybody in creative and to the talent and everybody that's kind of working along with this. And for the most part, I've been able to watch WWE as a fan from home for a majority of what's been going on. And I've been so excited to be like, oh my God, what's the Boneyard match going to look like? What is Money in the Bank going to look like? And I think that it's sort of that intrigue that, I mean, they've knocked it out of the park with all three of these matches, if you ask me. But it's cool to just sort of, stir the pot a little bit with that to see if, like, is it going to work? Are people going to like it? And I think it's been really successful so far.
They obviously, they can't make the whole show out of these. So they do have some like empty arena matches in a ring, normal with like a referee, etc. But these as a change of pace, I think can endure. So I wanted to talk about WWE Backstage on FS1, which I think is it's a groundbreaking show in the sense that there's never really been a weekly WWE studio show like this. What has been the adjustment from taping it in a studio where you've got planning and production and you're in person to now you're doing it on Zoom, much like we're doing this call?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think for the first few times that we started doing Backstage from home, it felt weird. It felt weird to get in the groove and into the rhythm and figuring out, you know, we don't want any time delays. We don't want any echoes when we're talking. It's more of like this audio glitches, I think, getting that out of the way. But also we rely so much on our chemistry between each other. So for me to not be able to have Booker right there and like laughing really hard and stuff. I mean, we can still do that through Zoom, but you know, you miss some of that interaction. But I think as far as, you know, moving forward, and we've been doing it for however many weeks now, I think we've really gotten in a groove of what works, and we all kind of understand the dynamic. It took me a second, because a lot of times when I'm hosting the show, I will you know, I'll throw out like a generic question to the group, but I'm kind of guiding them along with like my eyes of like, Booker, you're next, Christian, you're up, Paige. But now I have to like really remind myself to not just like, hey, what did you guys think about this? I have to like specifically be like, Paige, tell me about this. Because otherwise we all just start talking and it's a bit of a mess.
And also, like, when you're in the room, I feel like just even before you're taping, Booker is such a wealth of information over the last 30 years of the business. Christian, not quite as long, but still a long time. And Paige has a lot of kind of firsthand experience dealing with the performers who are there now. And you're kind of learning all of that stuff before you prepare to ask them about it in front of the camera. But I'm sure you guys still do communicate, and it's just a little bit of an adjustment.
Yeah, it's just a little bit different. I mean, we still do like a pre-production meeting to go over what we want to talk about on the show, what everyone's opinions are going to be on things, just so we can kind of figure out how I want to navigate the show and what we want, you know, we need for B-roll and stuff to just sort of support what we're talking about. But yeah, it is really kind of the same. It's like when I go to the Fox studios, we still have a pre-production meeting. We all sit in a boardroom and we have the same conversations that we would be having on these Zoom chats, and then we just go and do the show in the same way. So it is a weird adjustment. We still essentially kind of have the same workflow, except I don't get to go through hair and makeup anymore.
So we're taping this on a Monday, but it's going to air on a Tuesday. WWE is airing WrestleMania 3 leading into your show, I guess, tonight for the viewers. There's been a lot of really interesting wrestling that's been on. What's a match or event that you rediscovered in the last couple months from the archives that you just saw in a new light and was like, oh, wow, that was amazing?
Ooh, God, that's a good question. Well, you know, even just like a minute ago, like looking at WrestleMania 3, seeing that coming up, I was just running through the card of WrestleMania 3. And what's interesting to me is seeing the times that they are. The main event of WrestleMania 3 was like a 12-minute match. And that's so crazy considering where we are now, where you assume a main event is going to be like at least 45 minutes. So it's interesting just to sort of see the way certain things like that have changed. One match that I keep insisting that we put on is the Hollywood Backlot Brawl, because that is my favorite WrestleMania match. So I'm still going to the powers that be, hoping that we can get a little Roddy Piper Gold Dust in our lives. But yeah, I think there's just been so much time spent watching WWE, and yeah, I mean, even watching like The Undertaker's Last Ride. I mean, that came on after Money in the Bank last night, and even reliving some of those moments through his documentary about being at those different WrestleManias, it does make me want to go back and rewatch those matches that he was a part of and sort of analyze what he was talking about in like under the microscope a little bit more.
And you guys did the ladder matches, and it's interesting rewatching some of those Edge ladder matches now back in WWE, and you're seeing the spear on Jeff Hardy 20 feet in the air off the ladder. Seeing again some of the just crazy things that he did to his body to entertain the audience.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. I mean, you know, when you see so many superstars that make these miraculous comebacks, and it does make you want to go back and like, I mean, you want to take a Daniel Bryan for instance, and like want to go back and see some of the stuff that he was doing and see how maybe his style's changed over the time. See how Edge's style is going to change now. I mean, we've not seen Edge back in WWE since WrestleMania, so I'm intrigued to see what his plan is going to be going forward, because I know in conversations with him, we had him on Backstage and talking to Beth, is he's supposed to change up his style coming back, and then we see that WrestleMania match.
Yeah,
and
not so much.
He has not done that yet, so we'll see what happens.
Maybe going forward. What I'm interested in seeing WWE doing, they've covered and they've done a really good job of covering the Attitude Era, the Monday Night Wars, etc. I'd like to see some more documentaries from the era between when Eric Bischoff showed up on Raw and the CM Punk pipe bomb. I think that's about a 9 or 10 year period that they haven't really looked back nostalgically on yet. And we've seen a little bit of a start, like with Edge and AJ Styles, and they're talking about, oh, you got here after all the good people left and stuff like that.
Right.
When Undertaker said that to AJ Styles. But I'm interested to see them go through evolution, like Ric Flair, the debuts of CM Punk and Daniel Bryan, to your point. That's a lot of territory that at the time it might have felt like, okay, this isn't as big as the Attitude Era, but if we look back on it, I think a lot of it is going to hold up really favorably.
Well, I think a lot of that stuff, I mean, you talk about the debut of CM Punk, the debut of Daniel Bryan. I think that opened the door for so many of the guys that are the top stars now. You look at a Seth Rollins. I mean, he's wrestled literally everywhere. Sorry, I have to go inside a garbage truck or something by my house. But it opened up the door to so many more of those like indie darlings that have taken over in WWE now, from an AJ Styles, like you said. I think it's just like, it's really changed the way that we look at a superstar. It's not just these like giant hulking beefed up guys as much anymore. It still exists, but it really changed what we were looking at in superstars, I think.
Taking it back to backstage, one of the really iconic moments from the show was when CM Punk showed up as a surprise. Now, you were in on it, but the rest of your castmates were not. At what point you find out that, wow, he's going to be joining our show and what is like surely going to use his words, break the internet?
So I knew I had some rumblings, I would say a couple weeks before, but in the world of WWE, you're always kind of waiting to be like, hey, is this actually happening? Are we really doing this? So I was waiting to like, because I had not actually seen him until his music hit and he walked through, because I was waiting to see him just like everybody else. But I'm getting like some texts throughout the show. I'm like making sure, like checking my phone to be like, okay, cool, like he is in the building. We are actually doing this, right?
Right.
But yeah,
didn't miss his flight.
A couple weeks. He did not miss his flight. He showed up. He didn't want to, he wanted to make sure that he was there to be a part of the show. But yeah, it was really, I think like the day of was when it all obviously felt so real to me that like, oh my God, CM Punk is coming back. But to have that moment of like counting down, Booker T didn't know, Samoa Joe didn't know, Paige, we had Adam Cole on the show that day. Nobody knew. Even people in the control room did not know. Because we had people from WWE in the control room and they're like, what the hell? They had no idea that he was going to be there. So those moments are so far and few between in WWE where, sometimes cat gets out of the bag a little bit early or, stuff can hit the dirt sheets and whatever. So it was really special to have that really be contained and keep it a special moment. But anyways, when I got to do the countdown and his music hit, it was the first time that I actually got to see him. So it was really cool.
I think that in some ways, Talking Smack was a little bit of a template for Backstage. They're not the same at all. Obviously, Talking Smack was a post-game show, but in the sense of the combination of improv and scripted, some of like your biggest moments in the WWE universe came on that show. And I think probably the biggest was when Daniel Bryan and The Miz had a worked shoot. When you're sitting there and trying to figure out how to respond to it when it's a combination of scripted storyline and actually maybe some real life animosity, how do you make sure that you do that moment justice?
Honestly, I don't know. You just have to kind of trust your instincts on that. Because I mean, I remember sitting there and it was when Miz was really getting in Bryan's face and talking about how we can't wrestle anymore and just really bringing him down. And Bryan was about to walk off the set. And I was like, am I supposed to like say something? Do I have to like jump in here and like stick up for Bryan? Like, I didn't know how to handle the situation because it was so real and it was so deep, the stuff that they were saying back and forth to each other that, it was just sort of uncomfortably taking in the moment. I mean, obviously you're aware that all these cameras are on you. I didn't really know what the out was going to be for that. So I think you just have to like trust your instincts and sort of stay in that moment and follow along to see what's going on. But I mean, those moments are so special when they happen. You just have to be present for them, I guess.
You've done a lot of roles with WWE. You're at Backstage now. You've been a backstage interviewer. You've hosted Talking Smack. You've been on commentary. Would you ever want to do a program as a manager? And if so, who would you want to manage?
Ooh, I would love to do that actually. Yeah, I would love to do that. And it's something that I've always wanted to kind of dabble in. It's, before I got into WWE, I mean, yeah, I was like hosting some stuff up in Toronto, but my background really was more in entertainment rather than being like a broadcaster per se. So I think that's something I would always love to do. One person who I thought for a second, I was like, ooh, should we like pitch a thing, was Elias. That I thought it'd be really fun to manage Elias as like his like band manager or something. I thought something like that would be really cool. Yeah, it would be really fun.
Are there any other roles at WWE that you haven't done that you'd want to, like special guest referee or I don't know, anything like that?
I would botch that 100%. I would be the worst ref. Gosh, that's a good question. Gosh, I mean, from wearing so many different hats, I mean, it almost seems like the only thing that's sort of left unturned is like actually getting in the ring to do something. And I don't know that that's a great idea. I got to slap Miz once. I took a slap from Maurice before. I know what that feels like. But aside from that, it's like, I've not ring announced, but I also don't think I'd be very good at that. I was supposed to ring announce something. What were we doing? Oh, it was when we were doing Tough Enough. And I think Vince wanted me to ring announce something during Tough Enough. And I was like, I don't know how to, I don't ring announce. I don't know what you like. What do I say? Like their weight and their like where they're from. I would ruin it. I would totally ruin it. But I think something like that is something that I miss, is like doing like the Tough Enoughs. Maybe like hosting some more stuff like that would be in my wheelhouse. Even seeing how WWE is really like branching out and having other shows start to pop up on some other networks, different movies and stuff like that. That's something that really appeals to me. I would love to do something like that.
As you reflect on your career, is there any moment or like series of time that you're particularly proud of?
Yeah, I would have to go back to Talking Smack. That was definitely me in my element the most. It was just fun, flying by the seat of our pants. We didn't have a pre-production meeting. We'd be like during the show, I'd be watching Raw, SmackDown, watching pay-per-views, and I'd be like writing a few notes down of like, oh, I'd like us to talk about this. And then we would be moments before going live. I'd see Brian and be like, hey, what do you think about this? And then like we would plug in and we would go live. So that was definitely the most fun time. I think that was like a really special moment where we were able to capture something really special.
Let's say we're somehow in a way where fans could be back from the fall. Basically, WWE finds a way, just like they've been taping live where a lot of other things have been shut down. They find some location, some way to make it safe. What is a program that's happening now that you just can't wait to see a live audience interact with?
I mean, gosh, I do think Drew and Seth last night, they absolutely tore it up. But without having the audience there, I think a lot of stuff, not that it doesn't translate, it translates, but I think having that energy behind them, because I really think that the Seth Drew rivalry could turn into being one of their greatest rivalries for both of those men. So I think the lack of an audience is something that is a bit of a bummer for those two, because I think that energy I couldn't imagine how loud the crowd would have been for that match last night between the two of those guys. So that one definitely, I love all of the stuff with like Daniel Bryan and Drew Gulak and Cesaro, like all that stuff I think is entertaining as all hell. And then for the women, I just can't wait to see what Asuka is going to do. Asuka holding on to that contract and being able to run in at any time. I can't wait to see creatively what she's going to end up doing with that, because I think that'll be engaging for sure.
As you know, lots of people who watch WWE have their own ideas about how they would do things better. with the writing. One thing over the last few years that is one of my gripes is I'd like to see Sasha Banks be the queen bee. Like, I don't think that she should be supporting a best friend. I think she should be ruthlessly going for the title. And I know there's elements of that have been interspliced in this story, and the whole interruption with the audience being gone can prolong some things, but I'd really like to see her have a sustained run on top, as all times that she's won, she's just lost it in the next match.
Yeah, you know, I agree to that. I mean, I think Sasha Banks is so immensely talented, and I think she has that superstar draw about her. I think people really want to love her and support her. I mean, whether she's a heel or a baby face, people love it either way. But you know, I think the stuff with her and Bailey, they obviously they are best friends. That when they went for the tag titles. The interesting thing, though, I think between Bailey and Sasha is you are always waiting for Sasha to turn on Bailey again. I think that's always going to be their dynamic, is waiting for that to happen again. And, you know, maybe whenever that next time is going to be, hopefully they can really take it and run with it and really lean into that. Because I think there's so much depth to Sasha's character that I think that we've not even got to see or really tap into, because there's so much there. I agree with you. I mean, I think her being an absolute top star in the company is it's going to be inevitable. It will happen at some point.
Yeah, I mean, CM Punk mentioned on Backstage a few weeks ago that he maybe saw Horsewomen versus Horsewomen build happening. I think making her look really strong, if she can like put somebody in the bank statement and get the submission for that match or something, that could be something that propels her.
Yeah, I agree. I think that would be something that would be. I mean, everyone's dying to see the four horsewomen versus the four horsewomen. But yeah, I agree. I think that would be a great spot to really let Sasha shine and catapult her up to that next level. We know how good Charlotte is. We know how great Becky is. I think giving Sasha the ball to run with it, I think would have a big payoff.
Who is one person or multiple people from WWE Universe, past or present, that you'd love to have on Backstage?
Ooh, okay. Well, I mean, I would always love to have Mean Gene on, because he is one of my absolute favorite humans ever. I miss him dearly. Roddy Piper would be another one. I would love if we could have, you know, in another time been able to have a Roddy Piper on the show. Still waiting for Stone Cold to pick up that call. I would like Stone Cold to show up. I would like to have Lita on. Lita's another one. I mean, she's a good friend of mine. I would love to have her on, pick her brain in that atmosphere. Who else? Let me rack my brain for a second. I mean, like a Macho Man.
Yeah, he unfortunately, like with Savage and Mean Gene, like the two of them, there's really never been, I think, anybody as good at portraying the surreality of the genre in their own like special way. But yeah, you mentioned Mean Gene, and he was just such an immaculate straight man. Like, just the world could be having like a hurricane around him, and he just kept his temperament. And he performed in a way that made the viewer understand that he knows that this is ridiculous, but that his not breaking character is just like a testament to his ability as a performer.
So when I first started with WWE, one of the very first shows I ever did was a show called WWE Vintage. It airs mostly internationally, I think. So I knew about it when I was in Canada, because it used to air on the network I worked on. So that was the first thing I got brought in to do. And I remember being so nervous, because I was like, whoa, I'm like walking, like Mean Gene is introducing me onto the set as like his co-host. But we did that show for years together, and he would just crack me up between takes, like just so sharp, doesn't miss a beat. Even like, you know, if we like flubbed one of the lines or something in the show, his reaction to like getting mad that he like messed something up, or if I messed something up, would crack me up. Like I would end up in tears by the end of the day just laughing at him. He's the best.
Yeah, I mean, he's also just one of those people, you see him on the screen and you know that what is going to happen matters.
Yes. Yeah, there's a draw about him that I mean, yeah, he's like a once in a lifetime kind of performer. He really knew how to elevate talent, that interview, and make that it meant something. You know, I think a lot of times there's been so much like trash talked about the interviewers and the reactions at the end, like what the questions are. And I think Mean Gene was able to take that role and really make it feel special and important, and make himself like a huge role in WWE, one of the most iconic characters of all time.
It really is kind of a chicken or the egg thing, because I think that he had a lot more license for improvisation than the interviewers may have now. But then, I don't know, if you ask Vince about it, I've never talked to Vince, but he would probably say, well, he earned the right to improvise. And so you got to kind of like balance that. But I do think like that there are lots of people who might have the ability to create some of that specialness now that don't necessarily get the creative license when you're on live and it's a family program and they're really conscious of their standing with sponsors and whatnot.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And, you know, you kind of touched on at the beginning of that. It's like, it was just a different time and the shows were structured differently. I do think that there was a lot more creative freedom to ad lib and react to stuff in the way that we don't necessarily have that liberty now. But yeah, I think it just kind of goes back to it being a different time. I think that applies to pretty much everybody within WWE.
Is there anything that I didn't ask you about that you are dying to discuss right now?
Oh gosh. Is there anything I'm dying to discuss right now? I don't think so. I think we covered a lot of stuff. You had very great questions. I loved that.
Thank you, Renee. I really appreciate it. This is Outkick the Coverage. I'm Ryan Glasspiegel. That's Renee Young. Catch WWE Backstage, 11 p.m. Eastern, Tuesday nights, FS1.